What is up, everybody? Hello. It is Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. I am here with my homeboy Herms for the Nate and Herms show. We're here to talk about week 6 of NFL action, some other shenanigans. It's late night. We're going to have fun. We've already got people popping into the chat here. We've got Albert Mariquin. What is up, my friend Albert? Good to see you. Saying hello, everyone. And Jamie Parag, Optimus Primetime.
Jamie.
Guys, just wait. We need like 237 more subscribers, and we can go to a premium sub channel, and then we can get real weird with our fantasy football content.
Oh, like exclusive lives and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, members only. Like, yo, guys, help us get there. That would be a lot of fun. I'd like to do that. Like,
well, what's crazy, we've already hit the hour requirements to get there. So it's a matter of subs. And once we get there, like all this crazy, awesome stuff we can do. I'm really stoked for it. We're getting close. So hell yeah, man. So week 6 of fantasy football. NFL football. It's been it's been a shit show. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. A lot of injuries, a lot of weird stuff going on. The Jets were supposed to be the best team in football. Gardner Minshew was supposed to be the answer in Las Vegas, at least for this season. We thought that Drake May was probably week 10 or later. Spencer Rattler sucked, and we didn't think we were going to see him at all this season. We have some opinions on that guy. And there are a lot of other things I'm pissed off about. Malik Neighbors sounding like he's not going to play this week. Real big ding to those of us who took him so high. Yeah.
Dude, that's a massive blow to that offense. And like, also, I will say though, if that does remain the case and he does indeed sit out, anybody who like dropped Darius Slayton after, just having him as like a 1 week fill-in, that's going to be another pretty good opportunity again. So, now that waivers have run, go check that. Seriously, go check for that.
I was just going to say, Darius Slayton, how do you feel about that? Now, he's been 80, right? 80. Well, we're same brain, dude. We've known each other for too long. 80% plus snap share in all but one game this season. All he needed was opportunity to thrive, which we've seen with Darius Slayton before, because it's been the Sterling Shepard show. They wanted to get Wan'Dale Robinson involved late last season. He's just been a victim of maybe getting pushed to the back burner. But when he gets these opportunities, he does tend to produce. This is another week against Cincinnati secondary that hasn't been especially great. Giants just come off a win. They could win another one. It's not a particularly strong division. Daniel Jones was actually kind of good last week.
Low-key.
I think he's a guy worth maybe in 2 QB leagues.
Dude, with buys and injuries, I would even consider it in like 1 QB leagues. Like, I'm not thrilled about it. You'd have to like really be limited in some of your options, but it wouldn't be one of those things where making the decision to start Daniel Jones would make me want to like, I don't know, swallow poison and just keel over. Like, it would actually be like, okay, this is a little nerve-wracking, but they're like throwing a lot. There's volume behind it. There's a little something. And he also hasn't really done a lot in the way of turning the ball over, which was one of the things we were really worried about with him in the preseason, with how bad he looked, especially that first preseason game against the Texans with those 2 just like really dumb picks,
Well, yeah.
Hasn't been that bad. Has not been that bad.
Well, he's got 1 interception and 2 fumbles since, but he's thrown 6 touchdowns and he's rushed for none. But we saw the 11 carries last week against Seattle, and Seattle's defense it's not like they did this against a shitty defense, right? Like, Seattle's defense is good. They're not great.
I mean, they were good. A little hurt, but like still stout.
Still, well, and for a fantasy community that like we kind of target the Giants offense when we're picking fantasy defenses. So good showing against the Seattle defense. We expected to do better. We've seen Daniel Jones be good, I guess is what I'm trying to get at here. So is it not that he's a good like long-term football quarterback, but people who know a lot more than we do paid him a lot of money. We've seen him struggle, but can he maybe put it together? like over the string of the rest of this season, can he actually be a decent fantasy option where we're talking about Daniel Jones is slotting in somewhere between QB 13 and 18 the rest of the season?
I mean, I don't know if I would go that high with it necessarily, but he is the interesting type of quarterback that I think is always going to be fascinating for fantasy. I wrote about this over at fantasypoints.com. Shout out, where I post all my dynasty thoughts.
Shout out
on paper. And one of the things I came up with was this whole kind of like new spin on how we think about the Konami code. And I kind of tied it into baseball. And like, I know you know what I'm talking about, but like for those of you out there, you know, the 3 true outcomes, you know, you either hit a home run, you strike out, or you walk, you know, like that's the general premise. And I kind of took that and brought it to the quarterback position, where instead of strikeout, hit, you know, strikeout, walk, and homer, it's like, you know, errant throws and turnovers that get you in trouble. Being able to run the ball a lot, or just having explosive scoring plays because you just take it to the house because you're so fast, or you just have a rocket arm or whatever. And like Daniel Jones is precisely kind of like the poster child for what like the median, like mediocre outcome is for this archetype. And like, as long as like he still continues to cut down on those proverbial strikeouts, which are, you know, the errant throws and turnovers and all that stuff, those other 2 outcomes become, you know, more of what his scoring is built upon in the positive direction rather than in the negative direction. Like, you don't get positive points for interceptions, you don't get positive points for fumbles, stuff like that. So like, I am here for it. If it works and they're just willing to keep throwing the ball as much as they, you know, kind of have to stay in games, in all fairness, it's worth it, you know. And like you were saying, like the original premise of what you asked was like, you know, at least in 2 QB leagues, certainly, absolutely. Yeah. If you're like Superflex 2 QB, do that. You have Daniel Jones, but I'm almost there in 1 QB. I'm almost there.
I think you could make the argument matchup wise some weeks. Washington, Carolina. Then they've got Tampa Bay. Dallas is a good matchup for quarterbacks so far this season. In the fantasy championship week 17, they've got Indy.
Yeah, I mean
that's a good matchup for quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, at this point in the season, I think Daniel Jones is kind of a buy, not a redraft buy. Dynasty, he's already rostered somewhere in your league. It would be really strange if he wasn't, and you're not buying him at this point.
Unless you really, really need it.
You know? Unless you're me in the lateral league, who I think just had to buy Daniel Jones at the beginning of the season.
Oh my God, dude. You know, like, I know you know this, but like, audience out there, just a quick tangent about that league. So like my old podcast, it ended. We invited, you know, people who used to come on the show a lot to be part of it, blah, 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 blah. That's the backstory. Entering this season, my 3 quarterbacks that I had on my roster were Derek Carr, Bryce Young, and Russell Wilson. And I was like, okay, like, I'm not like going for it, but like, I got some guys that like, maybe if they pop off, I can flip them, you know, do whatever. Ended up dealing away Derek Carr. Bryce Young gets benched. And Russell Wilson's calf just never going to heal, I guess. Yeah. I have played since Bryce Young got benched with 0 quarterbacks on my team. Like, it's so embarrassing. I'm the creator and commissioner of this league. But, like, the luck just went so far in the opposite direction that I was like, I would have to like make trades to have a legal lineup and give up capital that I kind of need to dig out of this.
Dude,
it's the worst situation I've ever been in, dude.
Week 3, I had to trade with you for Justin Fields in our home league because I didn't have 1 quarterback to start in a super flex. Because I had Tua and I had Jordan Love. And I was screwed.
Yes, dude. Right. I almost forgot about that. But yeah, dude, it's like you said at the top of the show, dude. Like the injuries, the hits just keep on coming, folks. Like it's getting really, really bad out there right now. Especially for zero RB people, a lot of receivers, that you're picking early. These are the guys dropping like flies. Accidental rhyme, but I guess it was pretty cool. So, hey, shout out me. I'm a poet.
New ones we got today. We didn't have this on the show sheet, but we're going to go ahead and let's knock this out here because it hurts. Michael Pittman looking like he's going to miss multiple weeks.
Great.
Freaking wonderful. If you're a kicker person, Matt Prater is again questionable.
Damn, he's one of the better ones too.
Yeah. Nico Collins to the injured reserve. We'll talk about that one later.
We will.
Is Devin Singletary coming back this week? We don't know.
From what I've gathered about it, because I almost included him in one of my articles coming out soon, just because I needed to fact check it for myself. I think he's probably going to play, but what I am more curious about is I don't think he's losing the job by any means, but Tyrone Tracy was also really good.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, one game, I try not to, tilt.
Sure. In a one game, dude, 18 carries for 129 yards on a 63% snap share.
Really good. That's great.
Really good.
That's yeah. So I'm just wondering, does that look more like a 65-35 split? I obviously I don't think they're going to cut it 55-45 immediately because of one game. But could we see this kind of like a Rachaad White, Bucky Irving situation?
I would lean more towards that than anything else. I think we see, if Singletary's back this week, I think we see a 55-45 split in Singletary's favor. But Tyrone Tracy averaged 7 yards per carry last week. 7 yards per carry. If you're Brian Daboll and you know damn well that your job is on the line, you would be an absolute fool to not give, at least this week against Cincinnati, give him 45% of the carries and see what happens.
And if that means, I don't know the extent of Singletary's injury. So, even if he does play, maybe that's a good way to keep him fresh for sure,
Sure.
That's going to be one I'm going to keep an eye on, because admittedly, when I put together my rankings this week, I was skeptical. I have Tracy in my top 50 running backs. I'm not completely fading him. I think he might be a deep flex option, but I'm definitely leaning more towards Singletary. So it's rare that I actually get to be excited about whoa, this Giants offense is going to be fascinating. Those words have never come out of my mouth in the couple decades or so that I've been watching football at this point. It's just never been thrilling. Well, not since Tiki Barber. That's the last time it was thrilling. But,
Tiki Barber was thrilling. It's true.
Dude, Tiki Barber was the man.
All right, so before we get to our I love that Buffalo Sabres QZ, by the way. Before we get to our actual scheduled content after all of these rants, I want to get to the chat here. Mr. Scampers, what is up, my friend? It's these sweethearts. We're somebody. We're something. He did say Daniel Jones made some great throws last week, and he did. Okay. But Joe Schoen might not know more than us, to be fair. I think that is fair. I think Hard Knocks has kind of showed us a little bit about how that office runs. Dave Fantasy tuning in. What is up, Mr. Dave? He likes Tyrone Tracy. He also likes Skeptical, and he likes Tiki Barber. Mr. Scampers chiming in here saying Tank Dell also did not participate with a toe injury today, something to monitor with Nico out. It is absolutely something to monitor. I believe that I have moved Tank Dell up to wide receiver 20 this week with Nico Collins out. I want to see how that split goes between Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell with Nico out. But we will get to that here a little bit later in the show. But first thing we want to talk about, rookie roll call. We've got Drake May and Spencer Rattler both getting their first NFL starts this week. May has seen a few snaps. Rattler has not, behind Derek Carr. You texted me about 30 seconds after the Drake May news dropped and you said, I feel bad for that boy. He's going to get murdered. I mean,
yeah.
I talked to Mike Reedy, my Tuesday Waiver Wire show co-host, about this. He lives just outside of Boston, grew up in Boston. He is a hardcore, diehard, lifelong Patriots fan, and also one of the best analysts we know, of course. His take was this: dude is dead. This was not the time. His offensive, the line's bad. That's what concerns me. And we've seen, I mean, we saw it in person at the Senior Bowl. These college guys aren't used to some of this pressure, and we've seen it through the first 5 weeks of the season with Caleb Williams, with Jaden Daniels, who has been more mobile and dealt with it way better. Just the symptom of what the NFL pressure can do to these younger guys. Drake May's behind a really bad line. I don't think there's a lot of hope for him.
Yeah. Dude, it's, to put some context behind it, the Patriots sack rate, now this is from the perspective of their offensive line, the sack rate they allow, 11.7%, the third highest in the league. And then also we can look at the other handy metric of blitzes faced per dropback. They are pretty much almost towards the bottom-ish of the... they were like in the middle of the pack at like 17. So like that just tells you it doesn't even require a team necessarily to overwhelm them and still produce that outcome of the quarterback being on his ass.
Yep.
That's just, that's really all you need to know. It's going to be, well, that, and also if you've just watched the Patriots this year, you kind of already knew, but good Lord, the only saving grace he has is the fact that Drake May at North Carolina, the way that I like to describe it whenever I, scout quarterbacks or whatever, is that there are guys who can run and there are guys who can scoot. Like maybe not like the turning on the burners and torching everybody like, Lamar Jackson or Michael Vick or something, but like a dude that can be out there and get some stuff done. And I think Drake May is that type of dude that, like, he's a little faster than your average scooter, but he definitely has a little bit of that vibe to him. So like that is going to be his only chance of overcoming D'Amico Ryans just throwing the kitchen sink at him.
I think you make a good point though. Drake May, they took him where they took him in the draft for a reason. Very, very early.
Yeah.
For a reason. They see something in this kid. I don't think this is necessarily the inept Arians, Bruce Arians offenses in Arizona that saw Josh Rosen just fold and look like someone who had no concept of what football was, even though I thought he was the most talented quarterback in that class.
I thought he was going to be good too. We can all admit
we all did.
Like, it's fine. It's fine.
And at the end of the day, he really did have some of the best metrics of the quarterbacks in that class. It wasn't a fluke that he went at number 2 overall. The situation sucked. I fear for Drake May, and I hope it's different, but I think this is a guy that this situation is setting him up to be out of the league in 2 years. Because we're looking at a team and an owner likely who was the one who pushed May to start. It's probably Robert Kraft. This wasn't Jared Mayo's decision. If it goes well, Mayo wins. It's not going to go well. Mayo loses his job. Now we're talking about a shift in the front office and the coaching staff in New England, and you bring in a bunch of guys that never wanted Drake May, which is exactly what happened in Arizona to Josh Rosen. Kingsbury comes in very vocal about, I want Kyler Murray. They get Kyler Murray, they move on from Rosen, they ship him off to Miami, and it all just kind of falls apart. I think we're looking at, there's a possibility the same thing happens to Drake May.
I mean, maybe. The thing that kind of prevents me from thinking that is that across the board, it's a very new regime, both in the front office and in the coaching staff and the whole thing. Like, I think they all have a little leeway regardless of what happens, to the point where, like, if this had been kind of foreshadowing a little bit about, something else we're going to talk about. If this was 4 or 5 years into, a certain GM's tenure and, 3-4 years into a certain head coach's tenure, and they, took their quarterback, tried their best, whatever, then maybe it's like, okay, like we let you guys go through this timeline a little bit. Now it's time to put up or shut up. Like, I don't think anything that happens this year is going to dictate whether or not Gerard Mayo loses his job or anything like that. That is going to be the big thing. But where I will kind of meet with you in the middle is that, being a DC area native, go Nats. Hey, got the hat. I watched a lot of guys go through this. I remember when I was really young, Patrick Ramsey kind of ended up getting shell-shocked, had a lot of talent. Now, granted, second-round pick, not the same exact type of caliber as a Drake May, but still point being, that stuff happens. It's terrible. Jason Campbell watched that happen. And then the most famous example, David Carr. Who knows what he could have been if he had gone literally anywhere else? Like, we are just never going to know the answer to that. So, like, it really is, I guess, just a matter of, like, how quickly can the Patriots turn this around in the grand scheme of things? Oh, you on that mute, baby. Ooh.
I want to think that Robert Kraft is going to be patient, right? Like, he gave Belichick 20 plus years, and the last 4 were real bad, and you just let him hang on. But also, I don't know. I feel like there's a starting to be and as dumb as it is, because New England, we're not that far removed from that team being so insanely dominant.
Yeah.
But I wonder if there's such a clamoring in that locker room, in that front office, in that ownership group to get back to winning Super Bowls, that they'll move on from Mayo after this season, where it's like, okay, we thought maybe that like this massive culture shift would change things dramatically, and all of a sudden we've got a team that becomes playoff relevant again. Because we know owners can be unreasonable.
Yeah, I mean,
and while Kraft was reasonable with Belichick, it's because they kept winning. Belichick kept winning, sure. So you're going to question the guy who continues to win.
But you're still also like, we're talking about like a head coach that is like cut from the fabric already. Like former captain of the defense, was on the coaching staff. And how well
has that gone everywhere else? Bill O'Brien, Matt Patricia, Charlie Weiss.
I understand.
I understand.
It's like we're 6 weeks into it. We're about to be 6 weeks. Like, that's kind of, because he's like, it wasn't some outside thing. It was like birthed from the Foxborough ground, this new tree that sprouts. Like, that's kind of the thing where I think Robert Kraft would just be the, well, then, and also like, I'm sure these people signed to like multi-year contracts and stuff. You're gonna have to pay them anyway. Do you really want to pay more people? I have a hard time getting there with that, but like the concerns are definitely real in terms of, because I think like what you're kind of getting at and what I'm kind of getting at is like we're still both really afraid it's going to be a while till they're good, and what that potentially does to him. And we talked about Bryce Young a little bit and mentioned his name earlier. Like, who knows if like that could easily just be what happened there. Like, he also just recorded some of the historically worst stats possible. But like, I don't know. It's just it's interesting. Like, are some of these dudes just getting pushed too early in general? Like, we're talking about other rookies. We don't have to hash that one out right now, but it's just a question I want also the listeners and the viewers to just ponder. Let us know how you feel about that if you really have strong takes.
Sure. So real quick here, I just wanted to point out, okay, so we're talking about like, could this team rebuild if they needed to? They have a lot of cap room. They have $37 million this season. Next season, they've got $136 million. 2026, they're looking at 130. 2027, they have $226 million clear in cap room. If this season doesn't work out with Jared Mayo, they could completely burn it down and start over. They have contracts they can move. Look at their receiving. I mean, they really don't have defensively, they have the guys, right? Their defense is pretty good.
A decent amount of them. They're very well coached, yeah.
And if you can get your offense to a respectable point where you can get a game manager quarterback, which I think that might be what they're looking or hoping that May can do, where you're just not turning the ball over, right? Like maybe you cut down on Ramondre Stevenson's workload. Do what you have to do to cut down on turnovers. This is a team that can win games defensively. It's not pretty for fantasy.
Yeah. It's the Steelers effect.
Yeah, sure. We're going back to like those Cowboys teams of like the mid 90s where it's like, yeah, Troy Aikman's in the Hall of Fame, but bro, go back and look at the film. That was Emmitt Smith's team. Michael Irvin did some
Troy
cool
Aikman's
stuff.
highlights are just hike.
They're hike and they're throwing to Michael Irvin and Jay Novacek. And that's about the
and just, you know,
and the occasional handoff to Daryl Johnston. Now we have neglected Spencer Rattler here. I don't think it's fair, Herms. This isn't all about Drake May. And to be fair, I wrote on the show sheet that I think Spencer Rattler has the best chance to be the most successful quarterback debut this week. Not because I think Spencer Rattler is necessarily anything special. We watched him at field level throw the same interception on the same play 2 plays in a row.
Dude,
to the same cornerback on the same slant to the same receiver. But New Orleans believes in him, right? Clint Kubiak thinks he can get something done with this. And I think if there's an offensive coordinator that's going to have a rookie quarterback come in week 6 of this season and make a splash, it's going to be Clint Kubiak. Better weapons.
Resume. Yeah.
Better options. He's got Alvin Kamara. He's got Chris Olave. He's got, Foster Moreau, Juwan Johnson, Taysom Hill at tight end. Rashid Shaheed, if he can get the ball down the field, which we've seen, and he can get the ball down the field. He has a big arm.
He can cork it for sure. That's not the problem.
What is his ceiling this week, though, in fantasy, do you think?
Oh, if you really need somebody in like super flex, like fine, but I'm not gung ho about it. I don't have him he's ranked outside the top 24 for me. I'm not thrilled, but that's also just because I don't think he's that good. And it also concerns me that, talking about being there at the Senior Bowl on field level, I am taller.
Mm-hmm.
That's concerning. I'm not. Here's the thing. I'm not short, but I'm also not particularly tall.
You're within a range of my height where I don't feel like I feel like we're about similar, right? Yeah, and when we were at the Senior Bowl, I felt like most of those guys were not. Okay, you get to the tight ends, and it gets intimidating. Like Ben Sinnott,
tight ends,
and Theo Johnson, and Brevin Spanford. You get to some of those offensive linemen, it got intimidating. But when you got to the skill position players, like even Michael Penix, walking up to him, you're a big dude, but
he's bigger than me. He's not as bigger than me as I thought he'd be. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Something about the cameras on TV. I don't know what it is. Warping our perspectives. I don't know.
I think we've heard about it. Maybe it adds 10 pounds. I don't know. But we're going to move on to another quarterback who's getting his first start of the season. It's far of a time in Vegas, folks. Aiden O'Connell will be starting in place of Gardner Minshew for the Las Vegas Raiders. This is an interesting decision, but I get it. That they were up 10 points on their division rival Broncos before losing 37-10, which just warmed the hell out of my heart. You love to see it as a Broncos fan. Not so much if you're a Vegas Raiders fan. How do you feel about Aiden O'Connell starting for the Raiders this week?
First of all, I applaud them for giving him a chance to really do a little bit more than he got to do last year. Not that, I was rooting against Gardner Minshew or anything, quite the opposite, actually. I think he's a very fun character and the league is more entertaining when he's the quarterback. But You
Of
know,
course.
but generally speaking, I hope he does horribly this week because they're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, of course.
So, from a fan perspective, I hope it's just the worst quarterback performance of all time. I hope he channels his inner Nathan Peterman. But from a realistic standpoint, he has an opportunity to be really good. I think, like, Beanie Bishop has been a better slot corner for the Steelers than I thought he would be. That was one of the things I was most concerned about coming into the season about the defense as a whole is that, like, okay, you have a UDFA from last year who didn't register like a single snap as your starting slot corner. Like, what the hell are we going to do? And so far, they haven't given up a ton of production to that part of the field. And that's really where you could beat Pittsburgh before. But that's going to be mostly Brock Bowers territory. Right. I think I was looking at it earlier. Shout out Fantasy Points data. Honestly, dude, like incredible. They had Brock Bowers' slot rate at like 55% or something like that. So he's one of those he's one of the fun tight ends. That's all.
Right.
So like, that's really going to free up guys like Jacoby Myers and especially Trey Tucker to just like kind of go nuts. It's possible. Like, I don't think they're going to win, honestly, but I do think they can do well enough that from a fantasy perspective, it could be interesting and worthwhile.
Yeah. I feel like there's an effect, and it's in all sports. And it's a very simple human nature effect of the first time you get an opportunity, your adrenaline's just through the roof, right? So you overperform. And we see it all the time. We see it long term with guys like Case Keenum in Minnesota when he got the nod to start for 12 games. Balled out. Love to see it. It was amazing. Got him a contract in Denver. Well, he lost a job 4 weeks into the season. Jeff Hostetler takes the Giants to a Super Bowl and wins as Phil Simms' backup. Plays like 14 regular season games, looks phenomenal through the playoffs. The Raiders signed him the next season to be their starter. I think he won 2 games the rest of his career.
You know what? I feel like one that really flies under the radar of people's memories now. The origin of Russell Wilson's career as a third-round pick. Matt Flynn started like 2 games for the Packers.
One game.
Yeah, like the week 18.
He threw like 450 yards and 4 touchdowns against Seattle.
Yeah,
his defense was putrid.
They immediately hand him like that 2 or 3 year contract and then gets beat out by Russell Wilson.
Matt Castle. Matt Castle's a great example of that. He had a good like 3 quarters of the season.
Little different circumstance, but like still.
Well, Tom Brady goes down. Matt Castle steps in. He almost gets the Patriots to the playoffs in the only season Tom Brady didn't start the majority of for New England in his career. Gets that contract in Kansas City. I don't even think he started half the season. Ended up getting hurt.
Terrible.
We'll see. Aiden O'Connell might ball out this week, but long term for the Raiders, it's going to be hard to want to be a part of any of these assets. And Devontae Adams is gone.
Hopefully.
And that's a perfect segue into my favorite segment, New York Goodbye. Well, my second favorite of the night. New York Goodbye. Robert Saleh is out. This has been the soap opera you would mostly expect with Aaron Rodgers there at quarterback, and it being New York City, New Jersey. Initial reports, Rodgers, quote unquote, approved the decision to can Robert Saleh. But of course, today is his day on the Pat McAfee show. And he denied the reports and said he just found out like the rest of the team. He compared it to a scene in John Wick when everyone finds out that Wick is on the the bounty list, and all the assassins' phones in the Continental go off, and everyone's going crazy. He said, well, that was us in the locker room. We all got the same text at the same time, right? So, believable or not, Adam Schefter also reported today that not only is Robert Saleh out, but it's likely that Nathaniel Hackett is out as the play caller They will be bringing in quarterbacks coach Todd Downing to call plays for the rest of the season. This after Garrett Wilson said, maybe our offense would be better if we actually ran some motion and did some scheming, but all Nathaniel Hackett wants us to do is run down the field and hold up our arms. Is this so here's my question to you. Is this an Aaron Rodgers orchestrated changing of the guard? Because he's looking at it like, look, dude, I've got this season and maybe next before I'm irrelevant and got to retire. They paid me a lot of money. I'm going to have my way. And Woody Johnson and the Jets are just saying, okay, we'll do. You want Robert Saleh out? We got you. You want Todd Downing calling plays? We got you. You like Jeff Ulbrich? You're already calling him Britch. This is what you wanted.
Dude, also, speaking of the Senior Bowl, shout out Ulbrich for being, because he was, so they let the assistant coaches kind of run each of the squads or whatever. And he was in charge of, I can't remember if it was the American or National or whatever. I don't know. He was
National.
in charge of, yeah, dude. And those drills went a lot smoother, if we recall.
Yep, so, they did.
And that's the guy who was in charge of that. So gotta give him some praise just for that little tidbit alone. It was was
of
very
course.
Plain to see.
Well, Jim Nagy shouted him out earlier today about that. Like, hey, yeah, no, he was the coach of the national team or whatever on the Senior Bowl, and he was really good. So I think that helped prepare him for this opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a hard time with the Jets. Whether it's Nathaniel Hackett or Todd Downing, whether it's Jeff Ulbrich or it's Robert Saleh.
Yeah. The fascinating part of it. Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay.
I want to hear your fascinating part.
Got you. The fascinating part is that there was also some thought floating out there in the form of news that Saleh was close to firing Nathaniel Hackett before he got axed. So you kind of think about Hackett's relationship with Aaron Rodgers going back to Green Bay and all that stuff. And your theory about them kind of just catering to Aaron Rodgers does kind of make sense. But I think it's a little bit less conspiratorial. That's a factor for sure. But there's also the factor that he's the easiest kind of figurehead on the chopping block. So
sure.
During Robert Saleh's tenure, the Jets ranked dead last in points per game, offensive touchdowns per game, turnovers per game, and total offensive EPA. The only offensive category of major significance in which they were not dead last was yards per game at 296.71. And they were second worst. So, even though he's the defensive guy, really kind of, and that side of the ball is clearly doing phenomenally because he is the head coach and because he's the figurehead. Right. He gets to be the fall guy for Zach Wilson failing and then having to be in the Rodgers business to begin with. It sucks. If I had a team, I would hire Robert Saleh tomorrow. But in this
I'd hire him as a defensive coordinator.
Definitely is. Yeah, head coach. I hope he gets another opportunity eventually. But I think
it has to be the right. I agree. Yeah, it has to be the right situation, though.
That, and I think there were plenty of primetime games because of, it's a team in New York and blah, 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 whether they were good or not, of course.
Sure.
Time. Clock management stuff was always a little bit weird. And you could always just kind of tell, sometimes looking over at the sideline, he'd be a little too serious in really weird situations and just giving off strange vibes. So it's some of it's deserved, but for the most part, he was going to have to be the fall guy. But the only thing I'm really concerned about is the guy who's going to be the play caller, whose name escapes me, but I know he was calling plays for a little bit there in Tennessee toward the very, very end of the Tannehill stuff. So if you remember how annoying that offense was, well, get ready. Because
whatever, man. If it makes some of these guys
Hall, that's all I care. That's really all I care about.
Right?
Please
Come
say
on,
Brees Hall.
guys. Come on. I want to get to the chat here real quick. We've got a few people here. Mr. Scamper saying that Ulbrich runs the defense. Saul is a great DC in all caps. Terrible head coach. Mr. Scampers, it reminds me of Wade Phillips. Phenomenal. One of the best defensive coordinators out there. He was given an opportunity to run 2 NFL teams, the Broncos and the Cowboys. He got the Broncos after Dan Reeves left. He got the Cowboys after, I believe, I don't remember who it was.
I think it was after Parcells after Parcells and then Garrett followed him.
It was after Parcells. Terrible head coach. One of the best
those teams were pretty good though. It's a shame. Actually, no, it's not. I don't like the Cowboys, but still.
Yeah. But the man is one of the best defensive coordinators on the planet.
Oh,
and I
sure.
die on that hill. The Broncos defenses in the early 90s that were just lights out good, those were Wade Phillips.
Or in like the early McVay years, like that
those were all Wade Phillips.
That major Monday night game we think about for the offense or whatever, like that was a bit of an outlier because those defenses
were Wade Phillips.
They were really good.
Do you remember when Von Miller was a beast in the NFL? Yeah. That was Wade Phillips, baby. Jeff Bell, our homie from Football Guys over there, saying yo over there on Twitter. Oh, Jeff, it's good to see you, man. And then we have Nick the Kick 17 tuning in here on YouTube. He's got a question for us. Who do I start in my 2 flex spots? So we're going to pick 2 out of 4 here, Herms. We've got Chris Olave, Brian Thomas Jr., Austin Eckler, and Tucker Kraft. This is a Jordan Love week, so I'm big on Tucker Kraft. I think he can get close to what he did last week. So I'm going to throw out Kraft and probably Brian Thomas Jr.
I like the Brian Thomas Jr. call for sure. I would definitely start there. But I really want to give credit to Austin Eckler. He has been kind of under the radar this season, and I think he deserves a little bit more credit. With an average of 75.3 scrimmage yards per game and 11.7 PPR points per game, has finished no lower than RB32 in every week he's been healthy. Of course, that excludes the week where he was out with a concussion and Jeremy McNichols came in and kind of did the Eckler role. But dude, Eckler, sneaky good, really sneaky good. Trust it. It's working. That offense is firing. His role matters.
So here's my only concern, because I agree with you, but I worry that Jeremy McNichols has done enough to eat into both Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler's work in Austin Eckler's absence. And the only reason that worries me is because Dan Quinn is the head coach. Otherwise, I don't know that I'd be so concerned about it. And I don't want to be concerned about it.
It's also Cliff Kingsbury's offense, and he's never really given much deference to
that's a fair bet. That's a fair point.
No, does that mean McNichols could still see like 3 or 4 touches a game just because? Like, sure. And like, honestly,
well, that's not enough to be worried about, though.
No, for sure. But like, that's kind of where I see that tapping out there. Austin Eckler's still really good. He's old, but like, he's that dude.
Colorado boy. He's from the Western Slope, baby.
100.
Yeah. We got the questions rolling in, which I love to see. We've got B. Ruckus, frequent viewer, tuning in. Thank you so much. Guys, if you were here watching us, whatever platform it is, follow us on Twitter, like and follow on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe on Twitch. That's a big one. And follow us on Facebook. We really appreciate all of that traction here. 10 team, full PPR. Mason, Swift, and Jacobs, he needs to start too. He's got Aaron Jones on bye. I really like what I've seen out of DeAndre Swift. Here's my question. Can it continue this week? Are you willing to roll? Because I think Jordan Mason's a must start. So is it Jordan Swift Mason, or Jacobs for you?
I have checking my rankings real quick to make sure I don't skip. I have it Mason and Josh Jacobs. Oh, dude, especially Packers going up against that weak Arizona Cardinals defense. Yeah, Dude, absolutely. Like, no offense to DeAndre Swift. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan in the world, but he's definitely been proving me wrong the last few weeks. But like, you named 2 other dudes that are just killing it.
Right. I think the thing to remember about DeAndre Swift, look at him historically. Dude is great between the 20s. He can do some work inside the 20, but historically teams go to another running back inside the 5. Chicago tried it the first 3 games with DeAndre Swift. It didn't go super well. Roschon Johnson has 3 touchdowns the last 2 weeks, and he has taken over the red zone share of work. So just keep that in mind. DeAndre Swift's still a very fantasy viable option. Trone Force. Is this Tron reference with the knee? I don't know. And Njoku banged up again, and someone dropped Kmet yesterday. Someone also dropped Ty Chandler. Would you put in a waiver for Kmet or Ty Johnson since Aaron Jones is week to week? Herms, who are you going after here?
Dude, I'm picking Ty Chandler. Like, the fact that he, even early in the season, looked more efficient on his touches and was able to carve in a decent amount. I don't know a ton of information about the details of Aaron Jones's injury, but it's only because I didn't bother checking because they're on a bye week. You know, that's the really complicating part that I think is like what prevented people from picking up Ty Chandler, is because you have to wait to see if it even pays off. But I'd rather have the lottery ticket than a tight end who just is not doing a whole lot. So keep in mind, since his big breakout game, when Cole Kmet had the 10 catches, 90 some yards and a touchdown or whatever, he's run on 63.2% of the Bears' offensive snaps. That's his route participation rate. Like, the 3 receivers ahead of him are taking away just enough of that stuff that we want the tight end to at least be competing to be the second target, if not better, of course. But at least that. And Kmet's just not there. You know, if you want a tight end, I think you could do a little bit better.
Yeah, and per Jack McKessie of USA Today, it's a hip injury, and they are not sure how much time he will miss. So something to keep in mind with the Ty Chandler. Like you said, he has been efficient, even with Aaron Jones. There are a lot of people who already have rostered him. We have Josh Loyola tuning in here. Josh, thank you for the question. He wants to know Jaden Daniels or Josh Allen this week. Also, is Dell worth a flex spot now? I have Ayuk and Dobbins in flex. If Tank Dell is healthy, I would start him over J.K. Dobbins, especially against the Denver defense. I want nothing to do with that defense in any way, shape, or form. And I'm going to get spicy here. I'd start Jaden Daniels over Josh Allen.
I don't think that's spicy. I have them, I think, Allen at 3 and Daniels at 5 in my rankings. Like, you know, you're definitely you're not going wrong either way. I think the only thing that kind of hangs me up on it is that Daniels going up against the Baltimore defense is a little bit tougher. But we're also talking about Allen against a Jets defense that has done a really good job of messing with him over the last several games they've played. Remember, like last year, just throwing those just like medicine balls, you know.
The same thing he did at the end of the game this past weekend against Houston, throwing those medicine balls and that last drive. I have Jaden Daniels at QB2 in my Week 6 rankings. I have Josh Allen at QB9 against that Jets defense.
Fair enough. I can't dispute that, especially with, like, dude, quarterback low-key at the top anyway. Super fun this year. Super fun. Super good.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of what Jaden Daniels is doing. So we got another question here. Mr. Scampers jumping in the chat. Half PPR. Ford at Philadelphia. WTF usage. Fair. I told a lot of people on Reddit to start him this weekend, and I'm sorry. Josh Downs at Tennessee, QB toe injury issue, which popped up today. And then we've got Mark Andrews versus the Washington football team with the cry emoji. These are all fair reactions, Scampers. I'm assuming pick one. The toe injury seems less serious to me with Downs.
He's the least scary option.
Yeah, I think so. Cleveland sucks, man. I was going to do a whole segment on how much I hate Deshaun Watson, but I didn't.
I have a really good Deshaun Watson fun fact if you want it.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So, this is per Austin Gale, formerly of PFF. Deshaun Watson is averaging negative 0.30 EPA per dropback, the lowest number for any Browns quarterback in weeks 1 through 5 since at least the year 2000. The second worst performance? Deshaun Watson last year at negative 0.20 EPA per dropback.
Hey, guys.
He is literally the worst Browns quarterback since fucking Tim Couch, okay? Like,
I was just going to say, we're talking about an offense that has featured guys like Tim Couch and Eric Zaire at quarterback since they came back to Cleveland in 1999.
This means Seneca Wallace can roll up to the stadium. Johnny Manziel can roll up to the stadium and just go, ha!
I think Hugh Jackson can even roll up to the stadium and throw out a little ha.
He could.
Yeah. Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, especially for talking about a guy like Deshaun Watson. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Come on and give a ha.
So I feel like we need to reset the vibe here. So I'm just I'm gonna throw this up.
It's so good. That's so good.
I mean, who doesn't love the it's Farva. You know what I don't love though? Nico Collins. Wah wah.
Bro, that's so sad.
Well, he was my wide receiver, one of my rankings this week. And like I was out running around, we were doing whatever bullshit all day. Working stuff. And I finally got into my rankings right for the show and was like, oh no, I have to take Nico out.
It was a sad moment.
Yep. So how are you feeling about Stephon Diggs this week?
He's going to be fine. I mean, his role doesn't really get impacted by this because he was already so involved anyway that like he's going to be doing his thing. I think the people it benefits the most are, well, I mean, it could be obviously both Dalton Schultz and Tank Dell are going to benefit, but the question is who's going to matter more for fantasy? And like, I'm not sure. So I'm going to direct that to you. I really don't know how I feel about it.
I think, okay, so here's where I'm at. I've got Tank Dell at wide receiver 19. I've got Stephon Diggs at wide receiver 10. For me, Diggs has the touchdown upside. Dell does too. But Diggs catches more of the short touchdown stuff.
Oh, dude,
he's more
I
of a
have Diggs
target
at 10 too. That's so cool. Look at us.
Yeah. All right. Look at us go. But Dell on volume, I think he sees a lot of targets. He runs out of the slot. We just haven't seen him on the field as much as we would have hoped. Tight end wise, I've got Schultz at tight end 15. That's probably going to change. I mean, these are my initial rankings. I'm going to tinker with these for the next 2 days at least. Yeah. And to be fair, when I'm going through Reddit and I'm answering start sit, it forces me to open up my rankings and start like, no, wait, hold on.
It's like, do I have him higher? Oh, sure.
We watch football, study football, nerd out on stats all week. This stuff changes from minute to minute. So, I mean, it's inevitable that I'm going to be updating things up until noon Eastern on a Sunday. Same with everybody else, right?
Yeah.
Things change. Let's move on to our next segment. I'm so excited about this one. And hold on.
Tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now, you're going to hear about it.
You might not like it, but we are also fantasy managers, and there's some shit that just pisses us off. And in honor of Frank Costanza, a.k.a. Jerry Stiller, R.I.P., sir,
bless,
we're going to air our fantasy grievances every freaking week. This is Fantasy Festivus for week 6. Herms, let's hear it.
So I want to call back to the whole Breece Hall thing because it's been super annoying. My home league, 2 keepers, redraft the rest of your team, whatever. Like I held on to Amon-Ra St. Brown and I held on to Breece because I looked at it like coming into the season, like this offense is just going to be designed for him to get like so much volume. It's going to be sick. Like this offense isn't going to work without him. And I also thought that the offensive line did enough to like really improve to the point where it wouldn't take Breece Hall having to get like 28 touches a game just to, sniff fantasy relevance. I thought he could be a lot more efficient and maybe be explosive, and he was my RB1. But so far, according to True Media, shout out, there is this really neat metric of percentage of first downs or touchdowns, like, of all of your rushes. Like they can calculate all that. On 16.1% of his rushes is he recording a first down or a touchdown. The 8th worst mark of all running backs who have carried the ball at least 20 times this season. And we can be skeptical about, like, oh, is Braylon Allen just better? Like, I don't know. But the Jets' offensive line has the 3rd worst adjusted line yards.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's bad
stuff rate total to the point where I wrote about this for something I published recently, and I used the phrase of it's this whole chicken versus egg problem is not exactly challenging. Like Jets offense, like just get your shit together. Not like I don't care if your team's good, just get it good enough to the point where Breece Hall can matter. Because like, dude, I'm 1-4 now. Okay. I have a pretty good team, but like that shit is killing me. You are all killing me. Nathaniel Hackett, you're killing me. I like to win this league so that I can buy cool Christmas presents for my family. You know what I mean? Right? It's my life hack, because it's like, if I don't win the league, they're all going to get like, cheap gifts. But if I win the league, it's like, I can splurge a little bit, do whatever.
Dude, if you don't win your leagues,
don't get me wrong. But
if you don't win your leagues, I might not get a Christmas card. And that's going to,
so
I'm going to, I think that's a fair grievance.
Yeah. It's very annoying, dude. Like, I don't even care how you figure it out. Like, even if you just start giving it to him like a billion times a game, just at least give me the volume, bro. Like, I can't do this.
It's going to make you feel better?
Bad. It always works. It always. What a time to be alive.
Yeah.
What's grinding your
grievance? It's tight ends, man. Oh,
dude, it sucks.
Tucker Kraft is a tight end 3, and like I'm okay with that. He's averaging 11 points a game,
which is like normally like the relevance cutoff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we bitched about that. We've bitched about that relevance cutoff for so long. Like, why is 11 points the relevance cutoff for tight ends? I've got news for you folks. It's ugly. Mark Andrews, I'm scrolling my screen. He's tight end 29. We were drafting him as the tight end 1 in some instances, in some leagues, and in some scoring formats. Saw it happen. Mike Gesicki, Zach Ertz, Tyler Conklin, Colby Parkinson, Brenton Strange are more relevant than Mark Andrews. I suppose my beef is actually with Todd Monken.
Well, yeah, perhaps, actually.
Dude, could you just tell us you were going to use Isaiah Likely more? Like, I'm on board with it. Dude's ultra talented. But, like, come on.
Dude, so not only that, but do you know what their pass rate over expectation is?
It's very high.
No,
Crazy.
opposite it. Low.
Oh,
low.
nope. I'm thinking of, no, it's very low. I've had some conversations about this with a handful of people, including you. We all assumed that Monken, who engineered Jameis Winston's 5,000-yard 30-30 season, and those Georgia teams that won national championships that just threw Stetson Bennett teams that threw the ball like crazy, right? But we underestimated the fact that he's really smart, and he came into Baltimore with a Harbaugh who loves to run the ball because apparently that's inherent in their family. Is it because they're not good quarterbacks and they just need to hand the ball off all the time when they played? Not true. Jim Harbaugh was a very good quarterback who I enjoyed watching as a kid, especially in Indy. It was something about the high socks he wore with the white uniforms that was just like aesthetically pleasing. Don't know. But I digress. I think Todd Monken is a smart dude who looked at this team and was like, oh, well, John's built it to run. I can work with that. We've got a mobile quarterback. We've got a really stout offensive line. Good tight ends. Our receiving core kind of blows. We got Zay Flowers. He's good. Not great. We've got Rashad Bateman, who's good. Certainly not great. And then like Devin Duvernay and
got Derrick Henry though.
But now year 2, you give him Derrick Henry. Well, duh. I am the biggest advocate when the West Coast offense debuted with the Houston Oilers and Warren Moon and Haywood Jeffries and Lorenzo White, and they just had this spread offense that killed teams. I loved it. It's like, oh my God, this is so much more exciting than like the robust offense and the wishbone. But it wins football games now.
Yeah,
Monken's smart.
Also, for the record, negative 9.4 pass rate over expectation, 29th in the NFL.
Yeah.
Just to really put a stamp on that, like, dude, yeah, it's irritating. But at the same time, like, it's also just such a very AFC North brand of football that, like, as a real life football fan, I'm like, hell yeah. But from a fantasy perspective, I'm like, ugh.
Well, from a fantasy perspective, it sucks. But as a football fan, and the Steelers being my second favorite team, and they're starting to become close to my first, like that brand of football has resonated with me for 30 years. Jerome Bettis. Bus, baby. We grew up on Bus.
Back, dude. The Bus, dude. I love that guy.
Bus.
I love that guy so much.
There's nothing to not love.
Oh, dang.
Really.
The Dodgers won.
Yeah, well, that's funny. Just Mr. Scamper just saying Dodgers won.
Yeah, dude.
As a Rockies fan, I'm supposed to hate the Dodgers. But to be fair, much like my Red Wings fandom before the Avs got here, I was a huge Dodgers fan when I was a kid. Give me some Oral Hershiser and Kirk Gibson, baby. Love those teams. We've got Shane Barrett saying, feed Derrick Henry, but also, hello, beautiful people. Shane, it's good to see you, my friend. Wonderful. Mr. Scamper saying, I believe he has a lower air yards completion than Deshaun Watson, but it's late. I've had pops. It's entirely possible. Deshaun Watson's been bad, but he hasn't been the worst quarterback in the league.
I could look it up, but it would just give more fuel to Lamar haters.
Lamar has something that Deshaun Watson doesn't. A soul.
2 MVPs.
And 2 MVPs. Oh, and a will to win. Deshaun Watson doesn't care.
Even if he did, I don't think it matters anymore.
No,
he's toast.
It doesn't. No.
The Schadenfreude of it all is just so sweet. It's so
right.
Sweet.
It is. What's not Schadenfreude is this damn channel, folks. Please, while you're here, like this video, subscribe to the channel. We're here every Wednesday night, roughly around 11 p.m. Eastern. It does vary because, well, this is just shenanigans and fun. And if you watch, we love it. And if not,
ultimate shenanigans. Yeah,
it's a normal Wednesday night for us. So please tune in. We appreciate it. Stuff that is far more important, but also of equal importance. Myself and Casey Kasem will be live tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. We have got your Thursday night preview, start sits, post waiver wire ads, and bold predictions for the week. And then on Friday, myself and Mike Reedy live for DFS main slate picks, high, medium, and low at every single position, plus a lot of weird insight because we're football nerds. You can find us at 4 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. And then right after that at 6 p.m. Eastern, Q&A live with myself and Matt Chester and guest. This week it's going to be John Arrington. You know him as Dynasty Coach A. Assuming he doesn't lose power, pray for John going through the hurricane right now. I just talked to him earlier, though. He seems like he's doing okay. Bless up.
Very good.
Homie.
Hell yeah.
Yep. Very good. Also, Sundays. That's our big day, guys. The Reddit AMA. If you've got start sit questions, head over to Reddit, our fantasy football, the busiest subreddit on the entirety of Reddit. We beat the Harry Potter channel every week.
Yo, so come check it out. Rules.
It does, right? It's so crazy. 3 million plus users over there on Reddit. We will be answering your start sit questions from 11 a.m. Eastern up until right before kickoff. Myself, Mike Reedy, Casey Kasem, and crew. We have got you covered. One more quick reminder. Please make sure that you like this video and subscribe to our channels. This has been a phenomenal time, guys. We always appreciate everyone who tunes in. Herms, I love that Blossom hat, dude.
Dude, it's so good. I'm so mad they're getting we're getting a new City Connect jersey. I'm nervous about what it's going to look like because, dude, the merch from this is just like, dude, it's at least 15% of my wardrobe. Like it.
I mean, I have been to DC in March and April and seen the cherry blossoms.
Beautiful. So
it beautiful. It really should be on everyone's bucket list, in my opinion. It's incredible.
100%. And then afterwards, you either just go to a Nats or a Caps game with me, and we'll just, we'll all vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. Or head to the Skids and get some drugs. I don't know. Do what you want.
You never know. Either way.
Hey, on that note, we're out.